The first thing I noticed wasn't a logo, a username, or even a face. It was the timing. I followed a public webcam rumor through pages that didn't even look connected, and the moment I started watching, the feed started behaving like it knew I was there. Not lag, not drift. Like a delayed response, staged to land right after my refresh. I've chased a lot of weird internet trails before, but this one felt different. Because the rumor didn't describe a hidden server or a hacked tunnel, it pointed to a real public camera. And then, the camera acted like a conversation. At the beginning, I was careful. If something is random, it should stay random under pressure. If it's staged, the behavior will lock to your actions. I'd done webcam trail investigations before on this channel, tracking public streams, grabbing frames, and comparing changes over time, but always with the same baseline rule: prove it's not coincidence. This time, the angle was sharper. Instead of assuming someone broke in, I treated the rumor like a test case. Find the camera, record what it does, and look for a measurable indicator that proves it isn't random. The rumor itself came from a redacted post that looked like it belonged in the middle of 1,000 low-credibility comments. No mystical explanations, no generic dark web tunnel, just a specific claim. There was a public webcam in a certain neighborhood, rotated at a particular tilt, with a lighting pattern that only appeared during a narrow daily window. The post included one identifying detail that mattered: what the camera would frame when the sun hit at a specific angle. It wasn't poetry, it was geometry. That's what made it testable. I didn't click links from the post like a tourist. I copied the described location cues and turned them into a checklist. Archive folders got created instantly: date, camera, feed source, and a timeline file that would store every action I took. I printed evidence cards too, because my brain trusts paper when I'm stressed. Each card had a redacted handle, the claimed location pattern, and a timestamp grid. Then I opened the feed in a way that let me measure timing, capture the stream frames, log my refresh steps, and save stills every time something changed. The lead wasn't the post. The lead was the camera's behavior under my observation. Here's the workflow in one line. Open the candidate webcam grid, match the feed to the claimed geometry, then run an evidence capture loop while recording my own action times. And the first visible proof came from that matching step. At 00713, yes, the timestamp you're seeing, one feed lined up with the rumor's description in a way that wasn't plausible. The angle of the left edge, the way a roadside lamp cut through the frame, and the shadow length matched the post's narrow window timing. I recorded side-by-side still frames with the same camera zoom level. The geometry held steady for minutes, exactly like a normal public feed. So far, everything could still be explained as coincidence. But then I started the loop. I refreshed at fixed intervals and captured frames right before each refresh, right after each refresh, and at the moment the feed should remain unchanged if it's truly random. I ran it like a lab technician would, except the lab is an internet tab. The next part is the unsettling change. After my checks began, the camera's movement shifted. It wasn't constant pan and tilt behavior. It became conditional. When I hovered on the stream, the feed stayed still. When I stepped away and stopped refreshing, it behaved normally. Then the moment I resumed, the pan began within the same narrow window relative to my refresh cadence. That's the public difference nobody expects. If someone is just watching, any motion is independent, but if someone is staging attention, the feed starts acting like it's waiting for a cue. I needed the moment where it stopped being a story and became data. So I did a correlation attempt. I overlaid my evidence cards on screen, matching my action timestamps to the feed changes. The best clip wasn't a dramatic zoom, it was the repetitive timing. Multiple instances where the pan started right after my refresh step, aligning closer than chance would allow. I clipped the relevant sequences and labeled them with exact second marks. The camera didn't just move, it moved in sync with my workflow, and that's when the first question answer arrived, clear as a punchline. When I followed a dark web webcam rumor through public feeds, what was the first thing that proved it wasn't random? It was the consistent, repeatable pan timing, camera movement beginning within the same tight delay window relative to my refresh and capture steps across multiple trials, while the geometric framing matched the rumor's claimed pattern. You might think, okay, maybe the camera just cycles on a schedule, and I coincidentally watched during it. I tried to kill that explanation. I compared several feeds around it. The neighboring public cameras didn't show the same cadence. I waited for the feed to run without me interacting, then restarted my capture loop from a different machine. Same timing behavior, not identical minutes, different absolute times because schedule could still vary, but the delay relative to my action remained suspiciously tight. That's the point where it stopped feeling like weird timing and started feeling like response. So what was the trick? Not hacking, not a secret backdoor, not an anonymous hoodie in the dark. The rumor's real magic was visibility. The camera was public, which meant anyone could watch, but the people feeding the rumor didn't need to control the camera, they just needed to control attention and timing. If a feed is monitored, some setups can trigger behavior through external viewers, refresh patterns, or automated viewer presence checks. In other words, they used the fact that the stream was public to turn curiosity into a signal. Then the breadcrumb got worse. After the behavior shift, redactions got thinner. A partial handle appeared, not in the camera itself, but in the associated platform page, somewhere that was unrelated to the original rumor. I didn't find it through the post. I found it by tracking where the feed source referenced user-generated metadata. The handle was partially masked, but enough characters reappeared across places that usually don't share identity. It was like watching a person keep glancing over their shoulder, even after you stop staring. I kept my notes open and my evidence cards updated. Timeline overlay, redacted usernames, old camcorder-style stills captured from the stream, CRT glow screenshots for contrast, anything to keep my memory from editing reality. And the more I tightened the loop, the more the feed treated my process like an invitation. The public camera wasn't acting like a random window into the world. It was behaving like a switchboard. So the final question I had to ask, out loud, because my brain needed to hear it, was this. If it's public, why does it react? Why does the same camera become still when I'm hands-off, then move when I follow my own steps, as if it's listening for the pattern of my attention? That's the part that makes this more than a creepy story. It implies a wider footprint, either an ecosystem of viewer-triggered behavior, or a coordinated attempt to map investigators through what they do. Next video, I'm not going to chase the camera again. I want to test what actually triggers the response. Should I test refresh cadence, angle lock, or username format similarity? Pick one in the comments. A. Refresh cadence, B. Angle lock, or C. Username format similarity. And if you want the full evidence package, timeline cards, clipped proof moments, and the exact feeds I ruled out, subscribe to Terminalecho. Because the most unsettling part of this wasn't finding a rumor. It was realizing the rumor found a way to measure me back.